But while that inner guts of the system, the web of contracts, is important, the even more important driver of financial instability is simply rising leverage of a particular form, and a particular form on which finance theory and macroeconomics has been entirely silent, or mainly silent, or to the extent that not silent, it has been wrong. If you pick up most undergraduate textbooks, and we were talking earlier this morning about the role of what we have to do in teaching undergraduates and graduate economics, and you see how they describe the role of the banking system, they make two mistakes. First of all, they describe a system which takes money from savers and lends it to borrowers, failing to realize that the banking system creates credit, money, and purchasing power ab initio, de novo, and with an important role, therefore, within the economy. But also, again and again, it says, well, what banks do is they take deposits from households and they lend money to businesses, making, as Joe referred to earlier, the capital allocation process between alternative capital investments. As a description of what modern advanced economy banking systems does, this is completely mythological.
Apart from the 2% of coins and notes within our money supply, would you agree that that what makes up the other 98% all originates as interest-bearing debt owed to private lending institutions? No. You don't agree?
But I put it to you, we're a small open economy. We have high levels of private sector debt. Mum and Dad have borrowed that debt effectively from foreigners because their local bankers source that from foreigners.
Apart from the 2% of coins and notes within our money supply, would you agree that that what makes up the other 98% all originates as interest-bearing debt owed to private lending institutions? No. You don't agree?
But I put it to you, we're a small open economy. We have high levels of private sector debt. Mum and Dad have borrowed that debt effectively from foreigners because their local bankers source that from foreigners.
Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I thought the honourable member had a better grasp of economics than that. The idea that you could borrow money to invest in the share market and raise money is one of those fallacies that most families decide not to do because they realise that actually if you could borrow your way to success, we'd have done that in this country a long, long time ago.
There are, of course, many reasons why Iceland has recovered earlier and more effectively than any other European economy that suffered from the financial crisis. But there are two fundamental dimensions to how we did it differently from others. The first is that we did not follow the prevailing orthodoxies of the Western financial world, the so-called Washington consensus of the last 30 years. We, for example, let the private banks fail. And I have never understood why the banks are somehow treated like the holy churches of the modern economies and are not allowed to fail. Secondly, we did not introduce the similar kind of austerity measures that have been almost mandatory in many other countries. We tried to protect the health service, the educational service, the welfare of those with the least income in our country. We introduced capital controls, and we let the currency devalue. And we did many other things that were not deemed to be orthodox within the prevailing recommendations in the last 30 years. But the second dimension is that we were fortunate somehow to realize early on that this was not just a financial crisis. This was also, for the first time in modern memory, a profound political, democratic, social, and even a judicial crisis. And unless you introduced reforms on all these levels, as well as the right economic policies, you would never be able to galvanize the nation to move forward. And many people tend to forget that an economy is not just a set of associations between financial institutions and companies and so on. An economy is fundamentally a community of people. And unless the people feel confident and have a vision and the will to move forward, It doesn't matter what kind of policies you try to implement. You will never be able to succeed. And these two dimensions are, in my opinion, one of the reasons why, despite there are still difficulties, of course, why Iceland is now in a better position than anybody, including us, could have expected 4 or 5 years ago.